we would not be where we are today without you.
Had you not been in my life, I wouldn't have known what to do at all.
You don't realize like how much you helped us.
And is the reason that we have our baby girl today.
And is open, honest, and shoots it straight.
So eternally grateful for everything that she has done for us.
So thank you, Anne, for everything that you do for women who are trying to have kids, who are having kids. Thank you so very much for everything that you do.
I'm Ann Matthews, a fertility acupuncturist and fellow of the Acupuncture and TCM Board of Reproductive Medicine. I wanted to make reproductive research and fertility medicine more accessible so that everyone can get their positive. Because whether you believe it or not, you're more fertile than you think.
We are back, already on episode 3. And before introducing our guest, I wanted to, once again, thank all of you for supporting this podcast, amplifying our collective voice, especially given that my voice is leaving something to be desired. I sound insane. I sound like Phoebe when she was trying to be the smelly cat world-class singer, but instead just sounded like a croaky version of herself. That's me right now. With over 100 reviews at this point, like I'm in shock. That's insane for a podcast that's been up and going for 2 weeks. So you, my crew, if this was a competition, which obviously it's not, you are the winning crew. I'm so glad to be doing this with all of you. So once again, please continue to rate, review. Every single voice counts, even if it's squeaky. And share this episode with anyone who you think might actually really need a bit of extra hope. Our third guest is my patient. She's my friend. And when she was 10, she was diagnosed with CML Leukemia. And as part of her treatment, she needed to undergo chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant, running the very real risk of, if she survived, not being able to conceive later in life using her own eggs. This is her story.
You've given away the ending of the story.
I know.
By sitting here 36 weeks pregnant.
That is true.
I guess that gives people peace.
It is a positive story.
It is.
Just to play on that positive vibe.
I can't watch a show if I don't know that it has a positive ending.
Right?
$1 Million Baby still, I find traumatic.
So like when you read a book and you just like have, you go to, you like skim the end of it.
I don't have the emotional fortitude to stand. Actually, like, who are these lunatics that watch these emotional thrillers?
Absolutely not. And if it's based on history, I'm Googling the history the whole time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Here we go.
Okay. I like how you can't really sit up very straight in this chair.
So it's like a combination.
You have to be relaxed and reclined no matter what. Shannon,
yeah.
I already know your story. I can't say that I have a favorite story because this is going to be a podcast of stories.
Of course.
But yours is particularly inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And because you are a wonderful human being, not that everyone else isn't, this is going well. You are a really wonderful person though. And in order for this to have transpired, it was especially delightful. So if you are comfortable, I would love to kind of dive in where you think is the most relevant for your fertility story.
So my fertility story began when I was 10 and I was diagnosed with chronic myelogenous leukemia, which is a blood cancer for anyone who doesn't know what that is. And yeah, that's really where I had to make life decisions, or my parents had to make decisions based on my future fertility. And of course, since then, I was basically told that because of the treatments I was going to have to save my life, which in my case was mostly chemotherapy, I didn't have any radiation, that when you're 10, I was like pre-puberty. So at that age, the chemotherapy would, not could, but they were like very definite on the could, just like fry all your eggs and then you would not be able to, you know, ever have children. And that's something that they tell you almost as if it's a part of your decision.
Right.
But at 10, like, how could that be a part of anyone's decision?
And especially given the alternative,
Of course.
obviously your parents are not going to.
No. But
even
I mean, it's still a
consider
lot
that.
to hear. It's still a lot to take in. And at that age, and even though the conversations weren't had with me, they're still shared with you. And I guess at that time, you're not really focused on them. But I mean, up until now, it was something that I was always focused on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at some level, it had to be at the back of your mind. You know, once you survived leukemia, you were able to sort of focus on the rest of your life and what that would entail and what that would look like.
Right. So like once I survived and I was in remission, and, you know, the follow-up really is just like once you're fine, once you're recovered and you do survive and you're in remission, they do blood work a couple times a year to make sure that you're cancer free. But essentially they do like a few additional tests, like screening protocols at certain ages to make sure that there's nothing like additional or nothing that could lead to any more cancer.
Right.
But otherwise you just meet with like an endocrinologist. That's it. That's the whole follow-up plan. And the only treatment that you're put on is hormonal replacement. So starting at the age of 11, let's say, I was put on estrogen pills or progesterone, whatever it might have been. And
Right.
then at like 13, I got put on the birth control pill. And that's just like the solution. That's the solution for you. That's it. You're going to be on the birth control pill. We don't really do any testing. And, well, you know, every year you come back, it's like, wonderfully, the pill's doing great things for you
Yes.
based on, I don't even know what. And yeah, that was it. That was just, they would always bring up, or I would maybe ask because I was curious, like, you know, could I have children or what, you know, like, is there anything different? And it would never be anything different. It just feels like they don't even look into it. They don't even research it. This is just, I mean, I'm sure they do to some point, but it's like a very personal treatment plan, but it's not personal to anyone. Like they do the same thing to everyone and they
Yeah.
just tell you the same thing,
Right.
which is just go on this birth control pill. Doesn't matter. Like
indefinitely.
and even now, like as I sit here, when I'm done this pregnancy or when, you know, breastfeeding's over, I'm back on that like carousel of health anxiety related to more hormones. Like, okay, well now what?
Yes.
If that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically like when I first found out that I could never have children. And it was just something that I believed. And growing up from age, I guess, like let's say 10 until like 28, every doctor that I went to, you know, I would have issues with the birth control pill like any other person. Like my hair would fall out. I would be depressed. I would have panic attacks, you know. I would have a face full of acne. I would feel bloated all the time.
Yeah.
And it didn't really matter like who I told. No doctor really took it seriously.
Right.
Like I have this famous story I love to tell where I was like 24 and I went to my endocrinologist, and she handed me like the food guidelines.
Right.
Right. Like
In order to solve
my like feeling of bloating.
Of what you just described.
Exactly. Like as if that is going to solve, like, thank you. And then I fired her as my doctor immediately.
8 servings of bread a day does
Big
help
glass
me
of milk,
feel
you know?
better.
Nothing like the dairy section of that food chart.
It actually is so yummy, but
Like,
but it's not a long-term solution.
it is. Yes. It's not going to help me.
No,
No.
definitely not.
But yeah, so after like multiple, doesn't even matter, you know, like you go to these doctors or everyone tells you, oh, you have to go to this specialist. They're amazing. You show up, they're like old. It's the same, like, you know, one fits all approach to me,
Yep.
to my story. And look, I don't know if it's just there's like a gap in the medical system when it comes to this situation,
Yeah.
or if, you know, how many, I guess, like 10-year-olds had my cancer and are now of older age. I don't know.
Right.
But it's just like not looked at. It's not studied properly.
No. I
No.
mean, fertility generally isn't studied
Right.
properly. So to then have such a subsection of the population for them to pay attention to should be a priority, but it's not.
No.
And we were talking about this before we popped on about how I have a slew now of patients who had cancer treatment who were told that they would never be able to conceive. And then they did.
Exactly.
So it's clearly not that rare.
No.
Although you are rarity.
No, I'm rare. Thank you. I
terms of
appreciate it.
like being a gem. That's you.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
You too, though, Anne.
Thank you so much.
No, but it's true. Like, you know, and then I guess if you want, I can get into the story of how I began my journey. But even at that time, like, I know I've heard you say it, or it's a common theme, navigating between, you know, I guess traditional like medical routes, and then I would call this more holistic. I don't know if you have like a different term you prefer to use.
No, I like that. I think of it also in terms of using research to advocate, because a lot of the time, like something about this podcast that I really want people to understand is that in no way am I anti-medicine.
Right.
Like in any way, I have extreme respect for not only, I mean, fertility medicine, but like oncology.
Right.
So it's hard for you to be coming from a place of, you know, medicine saved your life, but then also stunted what you thought of yourself in terms of becoming a mother.
Of course.
So it's tricky. I feel like people now can't be critical of the medical system without being then labeled ungrateful.
Right.
Or, well, I hate the term, well, it could be worse. No, but it could also be better.
100%.
And a lot of the time that I'm pointing out, for example, different routes of approaching your fertility, the first thing that I run up against is people's hesitation to ask their doctor anything. And I think in the last episode I just did, the physician actually said, well, doctors don't like it when you're critical of them. They'll give you potentially less of their energy and time, which is a fear that patients have when they come here. And I couldn't believe that he validated it.
Wow. That is.
And I was grateful to him for being honest. I was, but I was also, it made me nervous because then I said to him, well, the alternative is that people switch to a clinic where they feel like they're being listened to.
Right.
And they don't want to do that because that's then starting a whole new clinic journey, which is, as you know, extensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I feel like that's very relatable. I feel like you can get caught up, you know, like when I went to the fertility clinic, which I guess I could tell the story then of, you know, how I came here and then how I ended up getting pregnant.
Please.
But just quickly, you do like, there's almost like an authoritative feel to your doctor. And I was never scared to say, look, like my whole life, ever since I was 10, my mom was a really big advocate for balancing both sides. Like there is, you know, your doctor, but then there's also people like you. Like I used to see this naturopath. She worked at a Chinese medicine clinic in Yorkville. She was amazing. And she used to always make these comments about some of the supplements she was giving me for my egg quality. And I used to always be like, but I don't have any eggs because I can't have children. So what do you mean my egg quality? And she would always go back and be like, yeah, but you can like, they can rejuvenate, or you can try to strengthen them, or you can take these supplements and see where it goes. Like you're only 18, 19, whatever, however old I was, like you're not ready to have children yet. So just take them. And I've seen success. And, you know, it was amazing to hear, and it felt very much like the same stuff you start to tell me when I would come here. But I've heard from so many doctors, like, you need an egg donor. You'll never have children. You have to adopt. That it was like witchery. It was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to take these magical supplements.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Almost annoying and disrespectful.
Like, yes, but she was right. You were right. Like, you guys were totally right in the sense that there are supplements that can try to like strengthen parts of your body, or acupuncture. And, you know, maybe your doctors don't 100% know your story in and out, that they can fully say with confidence, like, no, you can't have children.
Well, it's also, even to like delve into the acupuncture side, like I posted a study the other day about how acupuncture lowers FSH and increases AMH. And then when I referenced it to other people who are also in fertility, they've never heard of it. And it's a recent publish. And I think if something were to come out, and with a significant research sample size. So I think if something like that were to come out about like a miracle drug,
Yeah.
everybody would know about it.
Of course.
And everybody would be taking it.
Exactly. And even now, like I bumped into one of my favorite doctors from Sick Kids a year ago when I just had my daughter. Like we were pushing, he was like, wow, you have a kid? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, and you're the second person like in the last short while who I've seen that I know we told could never have children that has a child.
Yes.
And then I was like, yeah, maybe you need to change that protocol or that language that you use.
Or even like inquire about research.
Right. Maybe there's someone who should do a test or something.
New study.
Right. And he agreed.
Yeah.
He was like, no, he took pictures of us. He was like, no, I need to like do something with this. What is happening? Like, what? Like,
were you aware of when he was taking the pictures? Was
he asked. He was like, I need a photo. I was like, oh, am I a celebrity? But then I saw him again this year and now I'm pregnant. And he was like, double wow, you know? I was like, what? Because like, yeah,
you're just
point,
walking around down on University hoping to run into
standing
him.
outside Sick Kids posing, hoping to get everyone's attention. But no, it's true. And like, I guess I can get into a little bit now about how I came to you and then what happened. But basically, like, I'm always looking to balance my hormones, whatever that might mean. Especially someone who's just like on the pill forever indefinitely, because like maybe I'm going to go into menopause or like my bones and my organs need it, which is what they tell me.
Yes.
Which I guess is true.
It is true. Yes. Estrogen is
my body
very
like
important.
Create those hormones on its own and I don't need to take.
Turns out that it can.
Exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, so I came to you. I feel like it was 2019 or 2020, just like looking to balance my hormones, you know, get my migraines in check.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you had some pretty cool migraines.
Yeah.
Sleeping ones.
Dreaming and then waking up with migraines.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's another podcast.
Yes, it is.
But yeah. And then I'd gotten engaged and I had seen some of my doctors and they were like, when you're ready, you should begin the journey because as we all know, everything in the fertility world can take a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
And knowing that, I was like, okay, why not? I know I want to have a family. I still don't really understand what that looks like.
Yeah.
Except I had you in the back of my head being like, no, I had this one cancer patient and she has like 3 children. She had no problems. You're good.
Yeah.
But again, like I believed you, but you know, my brain is so skeptical now of, first of all, positive news around that. But second of all, like contradicting the hundreds of doctors before you who had told me no. Anyways, so I had a referral to a fertility clinic at a hospital in Toronto. And basically after they did blood work, even though I was still on the pill on me, they told me that I could absolutely never have children. My AMH was so low that my only option was donor eggs.
Right.
Right. So I got off, it was a call because it was COVID. So I got off that call and I cried.
Yeah.
Even though, I don't know, I wasn't sure how I was going to react. I guess ever since I was 10, everyone's advice had always been, medicine's always changing. The fertility world's always changing. Maybe there'll be an option, you know?
Your mom said that to me.
That's like, was her main driver. And I believe it. Like there are people now living with different diseases or surviving different things that 20 years ago, the outcome was a little more bleak. So, you know, it was definitely like a positive piece to lean into.
Yes.
So I guess just like this definitive no with like one blood test was so overwhelming in the moment that I couldn't believe it. But that's not who I am. So I was like, thank you for your advice, but I'm moving on to the next person.
Yeah.
So I gathered up and I was like, okay, well, I guess if the hospital fertility clinic world is going to be like this, we're going to try a fertility clinic in Toronto.
Yeah.
So I made an appointment at a fertility clinic. They did the same thing, which I know you love, tested my blood and my AMH while I'm on the birth control pill, you know, really to get like the best advice, the best, you know.
Yeah.
Really tell the full story.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Also not one of your favorite places, but it's okay. We're not in the business of shaming people.
No, that
Definitely
comes
not.
later when I
Exactly.
have legal.
Exactly. So yeah, basically same thing. They do all the tests. And while you don't love this person, I will say it was the first place that basically said to me, if you want to try absolutely everything,
Yes.
go off the birth control pill, take all these supplements, and let's see what your body can do.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we did, you know. I stopped the pill, started taking all your favorites like
CoQ10.
PQ, whatever.
NAC.
Those, all of those.
Omega-3.
And this is where I felt the first time, like, between you and him, you know, like it is competing voices. And I just had to make the decision that I was like, I'm going to listen to him and take, you know, his supplements. And then I'm also going to listen to you and take your supplements. And together I'm going to like merge them and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
But just on a side note, you know, he did also have to say in that same meeting where my AMH was low, but not 0. So he's like, you have a chance. Your husband's sperm is so fantastic. Would you be a sperm donor? And just like,
Can you imagine if one of these times these men would be like, you know what? Fuck my wife.
Yeah.
I'm going to go donate sperm.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
But like, just to your point, like even having said that, like he doesn't know anything about him genetically. Like you don't know anything.
You're like sitting on the sidelines cheering.
Yeah.
Way to go.
It must be a way that they bond with their like the husbands, you know, like,
yeah.
dude, your
They
sperm
do
rocks.
like it. They all do like it.
It's just, I don't know.
They walk around with a little pep in their step.
They love it.
Who else wants my sperm?
Yeah.
No one.
Anyone? Any takers?
Get out of here.
So, but yeah. So anyways, I continued on just taking the supplements. And then lo and behold, like 6 weeks later, I got a period.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 weeks after that, I got another period. And at this time, like I wasn't
You were so shocked.
shocked.
I was not shocked.
Still shocked to this day thinking about it.
I was like, okay, do you know what to do?
I don't know what
Do
to
you
do.
have any menstrual products
Yeah,
in your home?
Like, do you understand like how often you might, like I'm just so used to taking the pill, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I got my period. I think I got it about 3 times, but I wasn't trying to conceive. I was just trying to understand like what my body could do.
Yes.
So I wasn't so good about going in for the cycle monitoring.
Yes.
You know, like I think I got my first period and I was like out of the city. I was like, I'm not going back to the city for this. I just like, wow, look at this. How amazing. Anyways. And then I think it was December. I think it was my 3rd period. And I was in town and I was like, all right, let me go see what this cycle monitoring is all about.
Yeah.
So I show up to the clinic and overwhelmed, no information. And then I don't know what I was doing. Like I think I went on like one day. You're supposed to go a few days before. Anyways, I get in with the doctor and he's like, we're doing an egg retrieval. You have a follicle.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, I was blind. I thought I could never have children. And then all of a sudden I'm told like I have this egg or follicle. I still don't even really understand. And I was just like swept up into this like weeks. Next thing I know, I was doing an egg retrieval for one follicle.
One egg.
And I hadn't even gone in properly. So they didn't even have like the proper timeline. I think you're supposed to go in like right away. And I only went in, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing.
There's a few different instances. Day 1, day 3.
Right. So I think I
Looking for
only
different
went
things.
like day 3, let's say, or I only went like after I don't even know. Yeah, maybe day 3. And so they had no reference. So like, of course, after I went through it all, like the egg was mature. I guess it could have been for a number of reasons, but I do believe it was because we didn't have like a proper timeline on anything.
Yeah.
You know?
I also find that women, when they have low AMH and like higher FSH,
Yeah.
it is hard to use stims and then retrieve an egg without causing potentially some stress on the egg, because then patients do seem to do better if they have the option to, in terms of spontaneous conception or using IUI as an alternative to like a more rigorous retrieval process.
Yeah. So it was basically like a blind week.
Right.
It was wild. It was a whirlwind.
Yeah. Your mom was here.
Yeah.
Stressing.
She was like, what is going on?
Yes.
And you were like, probably in the back of your mind, like, what is going on?
No, I knew what was going on. I just
But
was.
you need to try it all for
I was
yourself.
there for the journey.
Yeah, you were there for the journey.
So whatever that entailed, it's not about how you become pregnant. It's that you get pregnant.
Exactly.
So.
So after that, obviously, I mean, I was upset, but looking back on it, which, now I can do, it was just kind of crazy.
Yeah, it didn't work for you.
No, it wasn't for me. So I came to after that and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this because this was nuts for me.
Yes.
There was just like, it felt very blind. I felt like I was not really led properly or like educated properly on the process, or it was just like 1 minute I was never having a period. The next minute I was like having a procedure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's tricky too, because when you have been so involved in other medical systems, like in oncology, for example, especially at a hospital like sick kids, like you are informed about everything that you do. It's very careful, very respectful. There's a lot of consideration. There's a lot of different opinions. Everybody's working together for one common cause. And I mean, I definitely felt like when my son went in to the hospital and had to live there for 2 weeks, the doctor said to me, you seem very skeptical of like everything that I am, positioning as an option. And I said, you have to excuse me. I work in the fertility world and I'm used to patients not necessarily getting as much information. And so I'm nervous. And he said, "Oh, I get it." And that was it. And I was like, "Oh no, this is the common theme when it comes to reproductive health, that you're just blindsided and thrown into a protocol that isn't uniquely designed for you and that isn't necessarily going to have the success rate that everybody thinks that it does."
And I feel like that's exactly how I felt, but the opposite. Like I was so used to trusting my doctors wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And like really believing them and really, understanding what was going on. And even if I didn't understand, because let's say I was 10 or whatever,
Yeah.
I still knew that like they had my best interest health-wise to save my life.
Yes.
So it's very different.
Yeah.
So going into it, I was like, oh, a doctor. Oh, I trust you. I understand what's going on. And I wasn't educated well enough. I didn't have the proper questions to ask. So I just sort of like dove into it.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely felt that way, but like the opposite for me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So I definitely felt like after that a little bit, down, like, oh, maybe I can't have kids. But I remember I came here and you were like, no, you can. And now that I know you want to try, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to try, but I want to know, like, can my body ovulate? Whatever, what can go on? So you told me to buy those ovulation sticks and try peeing on them. And I remember I went away and I was peeing on them and I still didn't know what I was doing.
I was getting
I
screenshots.
sound so dumb. I feel
No,
like I
you
never
were
know
sending
what's
me
going on.
screenshots. You were informed.
I was. And I was
Yeah.
like up and down and up and down.
You
And
were
then
confused about that.
I was confused. I was like, doesn't it just go up and then come back down?
It does.
It does eventually.
Yeah, it does.
But it like,
Yeah, the low reading is confusing
yeah, it was.
because I feel like there's the ones I was having you use were
Yeah.
the cheapies, which I actually like better because then you can see it be, gradually increasing.
Exactly.
And then decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, and then shooting up.
Yeah.
As opposed to like this blinky static happy face scenario, which is a lot less. It doesn't give you much warning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like I did it and then I was like, oh, I'm on vacation. I did do it to a point, but I never saw like the shoot up.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, whatever. I'll try again next month. I don't know, 8 weeks went by. I never got my period and I was pregnant.
Boom.
Just like that.
I know. You were very casual about it. You were
Talked
like,
again.
hey, your strips aren't working this month, probably because I'm pregnant. Do I have to keep using them?
Pretty much. I was like, now what? Still don't know.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then this time around, it was, you knew you had body belief.
Exactly. Like you've said to me before, when you go through something like that, you sort of like lose trust in like what your body's capable of.
Yes.
especially when everyone's telling you it's not capable of something.
Yeah.
But then this time, yeah, like again, like I had my daughter in September of 2022. And then, you know, even after that, I have to go back to all my doctors again. And even though my body could do it the first time, they're all still telling me the same thing, which is like,
It's a one-off.
it was a one-off. Your AMH is so low. Like, you know, I don't know if you could have another child, or, you know, what are your plans? And I will say, like, the only person besides you who was like, just relax. If you can do it once, you can probably do it again, was my OB.
Right.
Yeah, he was like very much, when I went in for my follow-up appointment, I was like starting already, you know, like, what do you think? And he was like, what I think is you don't need a fertility clinic because they are, you know, in the business of business, and just relax. And no, I mean, don't mean relax like to get pregnant. I mean, like, relax your anxieties about all of this, because you're going to be fine. And yeah, it's just crazy that even after you go back to your endocrinologist, you go back to all these doctors, and they're still like, well, you know, it's a miracle. I don't know. It's like, well, so obviously that was in my head. So my timelines like were a little bit faster because, you know, I was still nervous, and everyone's telling me you're most fertile in your first year after having a baby.
Yes.
Which is fine. Like, I don't want to have any regrets of like not trying and then whatever. But yeah, and then
Is that what people say?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Another
before.
myth for you to bust on your episode of myth busting.
What about if you're breastfeeding?
Yeah,
You have elevated prolactin.
well, at the fertility clinic that I went to, because, you know, I went back because of my subchorionic hematoma.
Oh my God.
Another myth to
The
bust.
subchorionic hematoma deserves its own podcast.
It really does.
The drama around that. Yes.
Yeah, so then they also were like, you know, you don't want to I don't know how long your breastfeeding journey is going to be, but you're most fertile in your first year after having your baby.
Right.
I don't know what the science is behind that.
I should look into it.
Maybe there's a thing. Probably not.
Honestly,
if you don't know it, it must not be real.
No, that's definitely not true. And I love to delve into various studies that no one else cares about. So
Here's one of them.
here's Tuesday night.
And you can go back to the clinics and be like,
That's right.
Stop telling everyone.
Stop telling people this myth.
Yeah.
And also don't warn them against sneezing with a subchorionic
Sneezing and
hematoma.
coughing. Sneezing and coughing.
Get an
you
air
can
filter.
control that. Anyways.
That part was
subchorionic.
confusing. He was like, you have a hematoma.
Don't
Get an air filter.
Yeah.
Maybe it was to reduce like allergens,
I must have been.
to prohibit the sneezing.
But like, you can't control
Sneezing.
sneezing.
You really can't.
When it comes, it comes.
Yeah.
And I'm never one of those people who like holds my nose when I sneeze. Like, when I sneeze, it's like gotta come out. I don't know what's in there.
Are you at least like kind of?
Oh no, like I don't blow.
Yeah.
You know me, Anne.
I pictured you just like.
No.
profusely-
I just mean like I don't like, you know, people like
sneezing.
literally like
Yes,
are my
no.
ears gonna explode?
No, definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't do that.
No.
No, okay. I
Yeah.
pictured you like that was a hypochondriac's nightmare. I was like, wait,
No.
how do you
I'm just
sneeze
as germy
at home?
as you
Okay, great. Yeah,
with a Kleenex.
Yeah.
And then I probably wash my hands.
I love that.
because sickness has got to not be a part of the equation.
Ever.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Which has been really fun with my daughter.
Yeah, and daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
So then I breastfed for 6 months, which, you know, proud of myself.
Yes, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. I feel like a hero. I know like other people really take on their journey, but it was not easy.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's also like labor, really bad. Breastfeeding, really bad.
Yeah.
Eventually breastfeeding gets okay.
Yes, some people love it.
I know.
My one friend just gave birth, and then there was a picture of her breastfeeding her toddler and her infant simultaneously, and she's smiling.
No, like good for her.
I don't know how that's even possible.
I don't know. People really do.
I was holding like a very sweet looking infant, just like curmudgeoned. Ugh.
Let's not talk about it. I'm getting nervous, you know?
Sorry. Oh my gosh, this is so insensitive of me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. This time it's going to be a little
very,
different.
It's very helpful for the child and
so I
bonding.
don't know. I had this like 6 month timeline. Wherever it came from, it just came from. Like, you know?
Yeah.
That's how long I'm going to breastfeed for. And I took it as a challenge.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But then after that, I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to try to get pregnant again. Like everyone, like you do.
You do.
Yeah, you do. Well, you did.
I did.
Exactly. So
I
you
know.
do. And then
I had the same thing though. I was told I would never be able to have kids. And so even after extensive proof otherwise, I still, between Aiden and Ari, that's like a 11-year gap. And I never took a break. I mean, I avoid sex as much as possible, but I was pretty on it mid-month, you know? And by it, I mean the intercourse.
I mean, you can't avoid it that much if you've had that many kids in that time frame. Like you were pregnant for
I was obsessed with those strips.
those strips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my
And
husband
intercourse.
never caught on. He was just delighted that it was mid-month. He didn't even care. So when
Best time of the month.
I'd be like, "Look, I'm pregnant." He'd be like, "What?
How?
How did this happen?"
Every time?
Every time.
But yes, it's similar to you. Like your first two are very close in age.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that same anxiety that we both suffered from, which is like, can I, will I don't know, even though I just proved that I could, will it
Yes.
happen again? So then after 6 months of breastfeeding, I think I came here and I was like, let's try.
I was on board.
You were here ready.
I was ready.
You were excited.
Crack my knuckles.
You didn't think that there was anything wrong with the timeline, which there isn't.
No, there's not.
And in my head, I'm like, could take 5 years to get pregnant again.
You're also in a stage of like,
Yeah.
this is when we do diapers.
Exactly. Bottles, diapers.
Yes.
Why leave and then have to go back?
Terrible.
Really nice. No
Shock.
sleeping. Let's just
Yeah.
like do it all at once. Let's never sleep. Only have diapers and bottles everywhere.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
100%.
Then I came like for 3 months and then I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive
It is.
for someone who is not supposed to.
Ever
Ever
be
have
pregnant.
children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know.
It's also interesting, and now I can say this, but I was nervous initially about your miscarriage risk potentially being higher because of your fried eggs.
Yeah.
But have been delighted that you've had back-to-back pregnancies where that was not the case.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I do find in terms of a miscarriage risk, the patients that I mostly am seeing, it's more of a clotting disorders.
Right.
And, potentially immune issues as opposed to, for example, bad eggs.
Right.
Or fried eggs. Because my other patients who had chemo are also not having miscarriages.
It's just crazy that you have other patients that also, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's obviously, I think I've even told you this before, when I was in that stage of like meeting with the clinics, people come with their stories and share, like when you're pregnant, you hear everyone's worst delivery stories.
Yes.
Did you want to hear them or not?
I was just about to do that to you with breastfeeding.
Yeah. That's okay though. Like I've been through it now,
Yeah.
My labor story would scare anyone at this point. But
I'll
just keep it to myself.
You're not going to tell random people at
No,
the grocery store?
I'm not going to. That's not this podcast.
You could do that
either.
after you hang out outside of the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Waiting to tell people.
Waiting to tell your sick kid's doctor and then heading on over to IGA.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
waiting to tell random strangers.
Can't wait. No, definitely not. I've decided I'm not one of those people.
I definitely wouldn't have.
Labor's
no.
great. Delivery, love it.
It was smooth
Really fun.
sailing.
Thank you again for listening. If you see Shannon standing on University Avenue, please make sure to give her a high five and then give us 5 stars and share this podcast with whomever you think might need this boost the most. Thanks again, guys. See you next week.